lot of people have been throwing around who would win in an MMA fight, Brock Lesnar or Bobby Lashley. Okay then, so there's this one guy up here. I'll throw this picture up here. He's put all his text down here. Basically, he's a Brock Lesnar hater. He seems to love Bobby Lashley, and he's thrown a few things up there. You know, a couple of good points. So yeah, anyway, he keeps on talking about how Bobby Lashley wrestled whilst being in MMA. Now, okay, that sounds really impressive off the face of it. I doubt he would have been able to compete with the level of competition in the UFC whilst keeping up a full-time wrestling career. And also, I would say that TNA and Strikeforce had a deal going at one point where they had payments going back and forth where they were allowing their wrestlers to go and fight in Strikeforce and vice versa. They had a little bit of a partnership going, so it was mutually beneficial. If you are competing with UFC guys, I don't know if you'd be able to keep up a full-time wrestling career. I think the fact that you had a full-time wrestling career says a lot about the level of competition that Lashley was facing at the time. Because let's be fair, when you look at the level of competition that each of them faced, when Brock Lesnar was fighting Randy Couture for the UFC heavyweight title, Bobby Lashley was fighting Bob Sapp. Bob Sapp. The punch-drunk, half-retired Bob Sapp, whilst Brock Lesnar was taking on the UFC heavyweight champion, one of the greatest to ever do it, Randy Couture. That's the difference between these guys, is the level of competition. Because this guy then goes, oh, well, Lashley lost twice, but look at the fight. Something about the referee constantly interrupting him or something. But again, I would say, look at his losses, but also look at his wins. Who has he fought? Who has Bobby Lashley fought? Where's Sims? Where's I've got no wrestling defense Sims? Mr. James Colossus, old over the hill Thompson. I thought that James Thompson was still in hiding from getting beaten up by Fedor's junky older brother. Jesus, that's not exactly a level of competition that's worth bragging about, is it? Come on now. At the end of the day, how is that an impressive... How are any of those impressive wins? None of them are impressive wins. Bobby Lashley might have like 15 wins on his record, but he doesn't have a single impressive one on there. Whereas Brock Lesnar, okay, his record is pretty bad when you look at just the numbers, but look at who he fought. Brock Lesnar has only fought 2 people in his career that did not either challenge for the UFC title or hold the UFC title. Those being the Korean fella that he faced in his first fight outside of the UFC and Heath Herring. And Heath Herring was a stud. He was really highly touted. People forget that in Pride, Heath Herring was really highly touted and kind of being seen as the next big thing. He was no slouch. And Brock Lesnar just bulldozed through him. Heath Herring never fought again after Brock Lesnar bashed his eye into the back of his head, basically. People forget that Brock Lesnar, whilst he's a professional wrestler now and he's like 44 years old and he's probably never coming back to professional mixed martial arts, there was a time where he was the heavyweight champion and defended the heavyweight title and was tied for the most heavyweight title defenses in UFC history until Stipe Miocic broke that record very recently. And people are so quick to dismiss Brock Lesnar's achievements, it's kind of laughable. The man, yeah, okay, he got his title shot based on his name, but actually it wasn't based off of his name at all. He wasn't even supposed to have that title shot. Randy Couture's opponent fell out and Dana White asked Brock Lesnar, look, do you want to fight for the title instead of fighting Czech Congo? Because let's be fair, like, Brock Lesnar's next opponent was supposed to be Czech Congo. With respect to Czech Congo, Brock Lesnar would have murdered him. Brock Lesnar would have double-legged him and smashed his head in, because that was when Brock Lesnar was still kind of in his prime as well, before he had the diverticulitis, before he had any of the surgeries and all of those problems. So Brock Lesnar then went and fought Randy Couture, and okay, he got the shot because of the name recognition that he brought and the eyeballs that he brought. He was the first really legitimate pay-per-view draw that the UFC had. And people forget that. Before Conor McGregor, before Ronda Rousey, there was Brock Lesnar. And whether you liked him or not, he was bringing eyeballs to the sport. And he's actually done more for the sport than most. That's why he actually belongs in the Hall of Fame. People fight me on that all the time, but he does. Because it's about your contributions to the sport. And Brock Lesnar changed the way the UFC was perceived. He really brought it to a much wider audience and really helped elevate the sport to where it is today. He was a real linchpin in that. And he might have gotten the shot at Randy Couture because obviously Randy Couture's opponent fell out, so that was lucky. But he then got given the shot because of his name. But he still had to go out there and beat Randy Couture. And that is not easy. That was not an easy fight. Brock Lesnar dropped the first round, in my opinion. But then Brock Lesnar came out swinging. And his physical attributes just took over, and he managed to clock Randy Couture right behind the ear and managed to just jump on him and swarm him, and he took that belt. He might have gotten the shot based on his name, but he had to go and take that belt. And people just dismiss him like, oh, he's just a fake ass wrestler. Oh, he couldn't cut it in the UFC. What do you mean couldn't cut it in the UFC? The man was the heavyweight champion. What are you talking about? At the end of the day, he was the heavyweight champion in the heavyweight division where the title changes hands more often than any other division in sports, basically. And the man still managed to defend that title twice, which at the time, until Stipe Miocic broke that record, that was the most title defenses. He was tied with the most title defenses. That's how unpredictable that heavyweight division is. And then, yeah, okay, He then got some losses on his way out. But what? To Cain Velasquez, one of the greatest of all time, and Alistair Overeem, when he was Ubereem, I might add. End of the day, not long after that, people forget that Alistair Overeem tested so hot. He pissed so hot. I'm not saying that Brock Lesnar wasn't on steroids, but at that time, he'd never failed a test. Alistair Overeem failed a test. Alistair Overeem, his testosterone to epitestosterone level, right? A fail, an Olympic level fail for epitestosterone to testosterone is 4-1, right? Alistair Overeem was 16-1. That's crazy. He was on so many steroids. People have a go at Brock Lesnar. At the end of the day, that fight should have probably been overturned because it wasn't that long after the fight. You bet your bottom dollar that Alistair Overeem was juiced to the gills for that one. Come on, man. Did you see the state of him? And I'm not saying that Brock would have won if he wasn't, or Brock wasn't juicing as well. He probably was. Look at the state of the dude. But people are very quick to have a go at Brock for being on the steroids, but he got the shit kicked out of him by someone who was clearly juiced to the gills and also decided to kick him right where he'd had the surgery. Come on, man. So yeah, he took a few losses, but he took a few losses to some of the greatest to ever do it. Who did Bobby Lashley fight? Bobby Lashley fought nobody. Absolutely nobody. And there are levels to this game. I like Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley is a good wrestler. Bobby Lashley is a good mixed martial artist, but there are levels to this game, and Brock Lesnar was the king of the heavyweights at one time, and Brock Lesnar would probably beat Bobby Lashley's ass, and that is my 2 cents on that.